So we'll move on to number 11, Plymouth Street Marketplace.
All right. So the Downtown Business Association has submitted a request to, they've developed a strategy called the Plymouth Street Summer Marketplace. And so the proposal is to close Plymouth Street from Church Street to Bridge Street on 3 Saturdays during the summer, June 27th, July 18th, and August 8th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., with the intention of allowing businesses to expand their services onto the sidewalk and roadway. And so this would be an event, it wouldn't be like the summer stroll in terms of having outside vendors. It would be strictly for the utilization of the existing businesses to be able to expand the services, promote social distancing, allow customers to have more space to conduct business, restaurants to have more outdoor seating during these timeframes. And so the DBA is requesting to utilize the $7,500 that the city contributed for the 2020 summer stroll. The funds would be used to purchase face masks, hand washing stations, rental of security, and entertainment. In addition, they're requesting an in-kind request valued at almost $2,600 for Public Works to close Plymouth Street during those 3 Saturdays. So the $7,500 for the summer stroll was previously approved by City Council as a sponsorship. This is a little bit of a change in terms of how that $7,500 would be utilized. In addition, with the in-kind request, staff is viewing this as a sponsorship request. It doesn't quite meet in terms of what they submitted, the formal request for a sponsorship. And so if council were to move forward with supporting this request, staff would follow up with the DBA to request that they actually submit a formal sponsorship application just to make sure that we are applying the council policy just like we would apply to any other proposed sponsorship. And then finally, staff is suggesting that support of the marketplace be contingent upon the approval of the Bi-County Public Health Officer, Dr. Liu. I'm not sure if Chris Ray is still on the phone, available to answer questions. I'd be happy to answer questions to the extent that I can. And if Chris is on the phone, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Well, thank you so much for staying with us all this time. And so with that, Chris is with the DBA and could answer any other questions related to the DBA's request.
Through the mayor, for Mr. Ray, does the 7,500 and the almost, I guess it was almost 2,600, right, is that for all 3 of the proposed dates?
I can't speak to the closure costs, but I can speak to the 7,500. Yes, that would cover all 3 events or marketplaces.
So when would we know about the in-kind? Because if it's 2,500 per event, that's a big ask.
So the $2,500 is for all 3 Saturdays. It's approximately $800 per Saturday for Public Works to close the street.
Thank you.
Good. All right. Do we have any public comment on this one?
Not so far.
Oh, we don't. All right.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
No problem.
When would the DBA expect to have a response from Dr. Liu in regards to whether the event's going to move forward?
So yes, we reached out to Dr. Liu last Friday. I did get a response from John Flo, who is the program manager of community services for the Sutter County Public Health. His response was that Dr. Liu is aware of our desire to create these summer marketplaces, and he passed along the guidances for different sectors that we, as we plan these summer marketplaces, we use the guidance and the safety considerations that are already set forth.
Understood, but there has not been approval. And the reason I ask is because I've met with her to talk about our 4th of July Kids Parade, which basically travels down Plymouth Street. and was told that that was not going to be approved. And I would imagine it's probably got about the same level of attendance as you might expect for this stroll.
So I asked specifically to John if we could receive approval from Dr. Liu, and he said that we, like most specific businesses, as we have begun to reopen, that we would not receive specific approval for these marketplaces.
So would it be safe to say not specific approval could mean not that it was denied?
I don't want to assume that, because in response from Mr. Flo, he said to keep in consideration the guidance and the safety considerations that are already set forth for businesses that are operating on Plymouth Street: restaurants, bars, wineries, workspaces, family entertainment centers, and the list of sectors that he provided: campgrounds, RVs, and outdoor recreation.
I certainly don't want to sound as if I'm against the event. I guess just practically speaking, one would assume that if we have 400 or 500 people walking down Plymouth Street, you would expect to have at least that many for your events on the 27th of June, et cetera. Or are you planning on something significantly less than that?
We can't really gauge exactly how many people we're expecting to be on Plymouth Street. One of the thoughts behind creating the summer marketplaces is very similar to the allowance of the flea market in Yuba County to exist and be reopened, these certified farmers marketplaces that are open as well. So we can't stop people from coming to Plymouth Street on these designated days, but we are trying to find ways to hopefully help promote a decreasing amount of people on Plymouth Street.
I guess, obviously, I agree with staff that it needs to be contingent upon approval by the Bi-County Public Health Officer. Perhaps, Mr. Mayor and City Manager, maybe this is a question that either is brought up through the City Administrator or City Manager's meetings, or if we bring it up at our conference call tomorrow. Again, I think it would be great to start having these events, but it just seems inconsistent that we can't have a parade, but we could have a bunch of people down on Plymouth Street for an event like this. So I just don't want to get the city in a spot that we might have some liability for. That's my concern.
Through the mayor. Oh, you going, Dave? Through the mayor. Diana, what were the dates again, please?
June 27th, July 18th, and August 8th.
Okay, well, we can't have a parade on July 4th, and they're saying June 27th. I'm all for it, but, Dr. Liu's the one in charge. I think the 27th shouldn't even be on the table at this time. I'm sorry about that. And we have a council meeting on July 6th, which this could be brought back to us at that time and see what Dr. Liu has to say after July 4th. And we could just me throwing stuff out. We could just table this until July 6th. And then, we're all for it, but we just want to make sure that everybody's safe and we're not going to be responsible for people getting infected at a later date. That's just my thoughts.
Through the mayor. As far as, the DBA moving forward, I mean, it's almost like through this whole COVID stuff, they're getting mixed information, just like we've gotten mixed information along the way to where we can't meet more than 10 people, but yet if you're a house of worship, you can go 10% or 100, and if you're protesting, it's 100 or 250, and it's like, it doesn't make sense if we're all together, we're all together. I'm wondering in this, if the reason they got the answer from Mr. Flo is because, and not a direct letter, is because we're a municipality and we're getting those direct, you can't have the parade, you can't do the fireworks, you can't do this. but they're viewing, from what I'm hearing over here, is you're a business, but yet you're a business association. So is it, I guess I'm posing the question, is the reason that we're not getting a direct answer from Dr. Liu is she thinks she's telling an individual business, classifying it that, you can't open or not, where the guidance has been, here's the guidance, open at your own risk, follow the rules, because if you don't, you could be in trouble. I wonder if, first of all, I'm supportive. The community needs something, and I'm absolutely supportive of our 4th of July. And I think if we're going to do fireworks, we ought to be able to do the 4th of July, and we ought to be able to do the downtown summer marketplace. And I know that the DBA is going through all the measures, as I've spoken with them, to try to comply with everything. I would have no problem moving it forward with the contingent of Dr. Liu, but at the same time, if she decides not to rule or give us an opinion because she's viewing it as an individual business, I don't want them to be hurt because of her, not wanting to give an opinion on an independent business. That's just my 2 cents. I mean, hopefully I didn't lose anybody in that, but I'm really wondering where Dr. Liu's at. Will she give us the letter or not?
Through the mayor, and if Diana, either you or maybe Mr. McIntyre, because you were involved with the marketplace in the farmers markets downtown, correct?
Councilman Boomgard, when you asked that question, are you asking it as it relates to the town center on Saturdays?
Yes.
Yeah, so they use our facility, I guess is the best way to put that.
So I, as a member of the compliance group, and Mr. Ray brings up some good examples of where things have been allowed, and then we have examples of where they have not been allowed. Again, I think this group wants to see that summer event happen, but what were the conditions under which the farmers market in the town square was permitted? Because it's a gathering.
It is, but the farmers market is regulated by the Ag Commission. And so there are very specific rules that they have to adhere to before they are even given approval through the Sutter County Ag Commission. Once they do that and they meet, and she, meaning Desiree, once she does meet those criterias, then she gets the permit to able to do that. And certainly COVID-19 falls, a lot of protocols fall under that that have to be taken care of before the permit is given. This is obviously a different situation than that.
Thank you.
Also through the mayor, the museum had the same issue. They were having a farmer's market, and they had to jump through hoops just to get it for a Wednesday night, just a small venue. They only have 5 to 6 merchants there selling produce, and it's, when you go there, they ask you to please wear facial coverings when you're there on Wednesday nights. So it's a sticky situation right at the moment. Like I said, I'm all for it, but if Dr. Liu doesn't give the blessing, I'm sorry, or if they can do the 18th, August 8th and August 15th, at least to give them some time. Like I said, I'm all for it for the businesses.
Through the mayor, if you don't mind, I think one of the things that it gets complicated is that once or if it is decided for us to participate financially, we become a little bit more open on a liability. Certainly we can ask our city attorney to do that. I'm not an attorney, but I'm sure that becomes a potential problem.
Through the mayor.
Yep.
Just make it nice and cut to the chase. Mr. McIntyre, since you have continuous communication with Dr. Liu's office, could you facilitate getting up or down on behalf of the DBA and the city, since we are looking at being a sponsor of this? We need to know if it's a go, if they comply with everything, or a no-go? I mean, can you be that vessel to get that?
I can certainly try.
Okay. Would the DBA be open to that?
Yes, much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Okay, then personally, I would be back to where you're at with the contingency. If Mr. McIntyre, you're going to take the lead on that and get her blessing up or down as long as they're complying, I'm personally comfortable with it, with that contingency.
And I would add to that, that you mentioned to confirm with our legal counsel on any exposure, like risk exposure as a council, as a city. Thank you.
We good? All right, no, it's nothing to vote on or approve, but the direction would be exactly what we've talked about just now. I think it's primarily just discussing the event. I don't think we were necessarily here to approve the event or not. It was whether we're going to contribute funds or not. And I do concur that we should not proceed forward, unfortunately, without Dr. Liu's blessing. And I also think that regarding the money, we need to stick with our policies. The additional, they already have the $7,500, and we can consider that a community sponsorship, and the appropriate paperwork should be completed. Okay. But other than that, I hope it's very successful, and hopefully it'll work. Public comment. Always forgetting something.
Yes, we have.
Mom have to say.
Yes, Mr. Burns said, just do it. You do not need permission from the overpaid. And he says it's ridiculous.
All right, just the one?
That's.
All right, and
yes.
we have Mr. Shaw would like to finalize things.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, one follow-up question, and I held back on asking this because I needed to know if we were going to be in alignment with the event going forward. Talking with the DBA, their idea of this is to basically pour out the restaurants and everything, into the street to give more seating and spacing and such. We do have conflicting rules, and I'm wondering if there's something that we can possibly look at doing, and this is going to take Mr. Chaffin, which I hope he's still with us. Right now, we've got all the restaurants there that have ABC license, and you can have a beer inside. But if you're going to be sitting in the middle of Plumas Street having dinner, you're going to have to go inside and drink your beer, or you can get it to go. We've got this whole thing about open containers up and down Plumas Street. So is there anything that we can do for this type of situation where they're extending the restaurants out to allow them to serve the alcohol, to the people that's sitting at the tables? And they're probably going to have to clear things with ABC, but I want to know if there's anything we need to do to clear that way as well.
It'd be just like any other festival where we close it off and they're serving alcohol, I believe.
I believe Shannon does have a response to this question.
Okay, good.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there are a couple options for the City Council. Currently, the city does not have a temporary use CUP that would allow these businesses to basically go into the street outside of where they would normally be serving. One of the ways that you could address that is amending your code. That would take you some time and would not likely be able to meet the dates that are being proposed. Another option that is out there is we are technically in the condition of a local emergency, and there are certain authority and powers that are granted to your emergency director and to the city council as well. If the council were to find that due to the COVID emergency that there had been particular impacts to the Plumas Market Street area in particular and the businesses there, that would warrant a temporary relaxing of standards to allow them to serve out on the street on these particular days, with ABC approval, of course. The city manager could issue an order doing that. That could be ratified by the city council at a later date if you're so inclined.
Through the mayor, didn't we adopt an ordinance that allowed the businesses down there to come out onto the street if they followed certain conditions and applied?
We do have codes in place related to they can eat on the sidewalk. They can expand onto the sidewalk. We don't have anything, as far as I know, in terms of expanding into the street. But as part of the COVID situation, council did give the opportunity for particularly restaurants to utilize parking spaces within the right-of-way to be able to expand their dining services.
So as long as they stayed within the parking space area, but they did have to come in and apply, correct? Or
they were to submit a site plan to Development Services to review. And as far as I know, no businesses have requested to utilize any parking spaces. It's been more so, I believe the Happy Viking looked at utilizing their property on the east side of the restaurant. And I'm not aware of anybody requesting to use parking spaces at this point in time.
So are you thinking that they want to go further out into the street than the parking spots?
That was my understanding, because they would pour out into the, across the sidewalk into the actual middle of the street. And instead of having street vendors, you would have tables and chairs. And the problem that I see is, how do you stop someone that has dinner and not quite finished with their drink, but they want to walk up a little bit and listen to the band? I mean, we've got all these mixed messages going on, and I just want to make sure that we are fine with sponsoring the event to clear the path. And I realize ABC is its own animal. So just thinking out loud, I mean, to me, it would be clearing the path for the barricaded or blocked off areas, because we are closing off Church to Bridge, and we're closing the side streets as well onto that. So it would just be Plumas, correct? To basically let that be a eating and drinking zone, because they're going to have a band playing music somewhere there in the middle. So it just, how do you stop it? How do you not stop it? So I just want to make sure that we're fine, because it could be a logistics nightmare. So myself would be, if you're within that square, you're good. Other than that, how do you block off? Okay, you got to stay here, you got to stay here, you got to stay here. So.
All right. Well, that's a good question. Do we have any other options on there? As far, Brian, are you aware of anything regarding this stuff? It would be a unique animal, because even on Plymouth Street Stroll, you have the garden, the chained off area, fenced off area for alcohol.
Right.
And these folks that want to extend their dining out into the parking stalls, did that include alcohol too, or was it just food? I don't know. I don't remember reading anything specifying that. What's that? It's on them to meet ABC. On them to be clear. Maybe that's what we do. If you want to serve alcohol outside, you probably they might have to kick in with their barriers and whatnot for the eating it. But then you have to worry about regulating that, of course.
Through the mayor.
Yes.
Sorry about that, Mr. Mayor.
No,
There's
go
a
ahead.
little bit of a lag here between what I'm seeing and hearing and getting back to you. I didn't mean to interrupt you. If the city, as Councilmember Shaw has said, clears the pathway, anybody who's serving alcohol, as you know, still has to go through the ABC process. Currently, under the ABC rules, at least as they existed this morning, they have to have plans and site and locations for ABC. So part of the approval, if the council is so inclined, is to comply with their ABC license requirement. And if ABC requires them to designate a space and to designate an area, either to tape it off or chain it off, and the city's fine with that area being in the street as long as it's taped off or chained off and meets ABC requirements, that would enable the business owners to be able to comply both with ABC and with city requirements.
That makes sense. We'll basically do it at the lowest possible level and have the individual businesses decide how they want to handle it with their license. Okay, so after all this, are we clear as far as discussion and direction, Diana?
I believe so. So what I'm hearing is to proceed, follow up with Dr. Liu to request authorization, follow up with the DBA to actually request that they submit a formal sponsorship application. And then we will also need to follow up related to the city manager determining a local emergency to allow utilization of the street for the dining services. And then that would require to bring an item back to council at a later date for ratification of that item. And then I'll work with Shannon in terms of language to provide to the DBA to either put some type of, because in the past, we've not required the DBA to get an encroachment permit. So we should work on some type of special event permit requirement and put language in there related to compliance with Dr. Liu's order, as well as any ABC requirements.
So essentially, that's the vehicle for we communicate those concerns and make sure we tick those boxes
Right.
before we proceed. All right, that makes sense. All right, thank you. Anybody else have any input? We happen to have any more public comment there, Tricia?
Not yet
All right.
on this item.